Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're talking about tips and tricks for your build-ups to create more tension, more excitement right before the drop. If you guys are enjoying these quick videos, remember to smash up the like button. Let's play back the demo. Alright, so we have a simple drop in G minor. We have the build-up. Let's first focus on the sub riser. We have three macros, and this sub riser is not quantized with its LFO. So there's some modulation going on with those macros. Let's hold a note. So macro 1 is adjusting the amp or the mix amount of the LFO for cutoff, and it's also adjusting the rate. And this is nice if you want to just break the grid and you start with a wobble that seemingly is on the grid but starts to go off the grid, getting faster and faster, and that just makes a listener kind of lose track. And when they lose track, it kind of surprises them and it creates a little bit more tension. Often people like bass jackers or many other artists do that. They start with this wob, and this wob starts to get faster and faster, but also with macro 2 adjusting the pitch automation. So macro 2 is making these oscillators go up one octave. Using macro 1 and 2, also adding a little bit more noise, but at the same time also adding more reverb. So as macro 1 and 2 go up higher and higher on the playlist, they're adding more reverb, they're adding more noise, and also as number 1 goes up, cranking up that wob, the color is also going down a little bit for the reverb, in addition to the high shelf going down and the low shelf going down. The reason why is because when you take a note and you go up an octave, there's naturally going to be more high-end frequency versus low-end. So to make sure that it's not too crisp and too harsh in its high-end frequency, this is a tip from bass jackers, just turn down the high shelf a little bit towards the end. And that's why as these are going up towards the end of the build-up, it's also turning down the high shelf. And the last thing I did was a abrupt automation of this, the filter 3, the LP, and you can see that there. That's right when the snare hits. So let's play back just this build-up synth, the sub riser as I like to call it, and you can get a good idea how this connects with the drop. I like that I come down during this fill portion because it has that feeling of slowing back down, coming back down an octave. I did that in the track Light It Up, where I had the sub riser go up and then it came down right before the drop, and it just has a nice effect. I like this abrupt stop because it just makes room for the big Prida snare. And then we have the chord arp. So the chord arp is playing just sustained G, but the top notes are changing. And when the pitch is going up for the sub riser, I'm playing a sustained chord. And during that time, it's up to you if you want to make the pitch go up or not. But I find that in this case, going up in pitch was nice. It was gluing it with the sub riser. Just make sure that if you're going to go up in pitch, here I was going up on bar 5, that it's a sustained chord, because it's going to sound weird if you're playing all these different notes and modulating the pitch at the same time. It just acts as a nice atmosphere, adding some ambiance to the track. So let's hear how this sounds with the sub riser. So it adds nice depth because without it, it would be pretty empty during this build-up. Let's talk about the effects, which are very important, even though some of them are very low volume in the mix. During your build-up, you still want to make sure you have low end, you have a nice foundation, you have those low frequencies. So I talked about that with the Sub Riser, but also adding some sort of big noise impacts are great because they are what tie one part of a track to another. So here I have some simple impacts from Jackson Vega. We have a sample from the Ali Nadem Signature Sounds Volume 1, and then also some sweeps. And they're very important on the 5th bar. Usually in EDM, it's going to be like an 8-bar buildup or 7 bars. That's a very simple way of doing a buildup. So on the 5th bar, usually there's another low end or something just to keep the energy going a little bit more. And that can just give a little bit more tension because those elements on their own, they might not sound too great. But when added to those, the Sub Riser and the ARP, they really glue everything together. So let's solo those. So just adds nice depth, a nice noise floor, and connecting things to one another. That's really the intent with some effects, not always. And we also have a reverse reverb of the lead, which you can do very easily with Fruity Reverb. Just sample it in Edison, just the first part. Another tip that you could do would be to pan it in many directions and automate it in something like Pancake 2. And then what I did was I took the drop lead, I just put it here, everything except for that last bar, and then I put on Endless Smile with Camel Crusher. And it had a nice effect. What it's doing is it's teasing the drop lead. So if you want just a lazy, simple way of teasing the drop lead, you could just throw in your drop lead there, throw on Camel Crusher, use the low pass filter, tease it a little bit, use Endless Smile, and the result can be pretty good. So let's go ahead and play that back. I did also, and you guys can do this with some elements or all of the elements, the break components like the Sub Riser and the ARP. I have a little modulation here with the stereo separation. Right before the drop, they all go mono, and then when the drop hits, they just come back to normal. Pretty simple, but these different tips and tricks can really add more tension to your buildup. So whether it's going mono right before the drop, whether it's using Endless Smile with things like a low pass filter on the drop lead, your effects with good low end and noise impacts, connecting and bridging one to another with their transitions, chords where you have sustained notes, and then whether you want to pitch it up, that's up to you. You can do a pitch up for the whole 7 bars. You could do a pitch up just from bar 5 and onwards, which is what I did with the ARP and the Sub Riser. And then of course the Sub Riser, when you modulate the rate and you're not just on the grid, it can really be more interesting to the listener because you're speeding it up, and then you're slowing it down. It just sounds a little bit more organic rather than just a simple 1/4, 1/8, just a quantized loop. So having that, I feel like with an LFO, just sounds really cool. Now, not all synthesizers will work really well with super fast LFOs, so your mileage may vary depending on what synth you use. And even with Massive, when you go super fast with the rate, it kind of sounds really odd. The last thing that I did was a quick one take. I threw on Fruity Blood Overdrive with some pretty harsh settings, X100, and let's listen to this just dry.
Bringing it back like the old school.
And when I recorded that, I actually wasn't listening to the track. I just was confident that I could use the multiplicator knob, which is what I did here on auto, and just get it adjusted how I wanted. Then I threw on that Blood Overdrive, distorted the hell out of it, and with the distortion, sounds pretty cool.
Bring it back like the old school.
Now, it's super distorted, so obviously needs to be mixed correctly and whatnot, but sometimes vocals sound pretty cool with crazy distortion, especially like a phrase fill or some sort of like pre-drop fill. And overall, the results, pretty good. I'm hoping that this can inspire you guys with different tips to increase the tension and add a little bit more excitement or melodic flair to your build-up. So let's play back a little bit of that build-up and that drop again with everything. So yeah, Yeah, that vocal's pretty loud before the drop. But guys, you can download this for free. The FLP is in the video description. You can download the project, do with it whatever you'd like, hoping that this can give you guys some inspiration. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to smash up the like button, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and that way you're alerted of the uploads. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.